Hi, I'm Ruth Molman from the Farmington Hills Historic District Commission, and I'm here with Dick Tupper from Farmington, who is going to tell me about what it was like in Farmington during the 1930s up to the present time. And it's a period that we really didn't have an awful lot of information about, but there was a lot going on in Farmington at that time. Hello, Mr. Tupper.
Oh, Ruth, thank you for inviting me.
And now your family came to Farmington from Redford.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Your grandfather on one side of the family had a farm.
He had a farm at the corner of Youngster and 7 Mile.
And you said that farm was rather unique.
Yes, it was the last working farm in the city of Detroit, within the city limits.
And after you'd moved to Farmington, did you still keep contact with the farm?
Oh yeah, when we were in school, during the summer months, when it was harvest time, we would get in the car after school and drive down there to help my grandparents pick corn and tomatoes. My mother and my aunt used to pick the raspberries and strawberries.
And now your grandfather on the other side was a Redford physician, was he?
That's right. He was a doctor. His office was on Grand River, just west of Youngster.
Mm-hmm. And then your dad got into the mercantile business?
Right. My dad was involved with the A&P store in Redford. He became the manager. And back in 1936, the gentleman that owned Redford Lumber Company also owned Farmington Lumber. And my aunt worked at Redford Lumber and recommended my dad to be the manager out here when that position came open, and he took it. And that's when we moved to Farmington in 1936. And we lived in the house right next to the lumber yard there on Grand River.
And this is a photograph of your grandfather?
My grandfather, my grandmother, and my dad, and my aunt, and my uncle.
And this house you said was built by?
By Amos Otis. He was a builder in the area. He built at least 5 or 6 homes that I know of right on Grand River, just east of Farmington Road.
And this house is still there?
Correct.
And your house was next door, you said?
The house that we lived in was next door. Has been torn down because of the parking lot to the shopping center there, which is in the shopping area where Marco's restaurant was.
Now, what was Grand River like when you were a youngster?
Well, it's kind of unique because in the 1930s and the 40s, Farmington had a lot of retail stores. And it was kind of unique because in fact, I would say all but 1 or 2 of the owners of these stores were also residents of Farmington. So we knew them as a family. Several of the owners of these establishments, their kids were in school with me, and it's just ironic. About 2 weeks ago, my cousin Bob and Avery and I were chatting, and we went up and down Grand River and named off the stores and who owned them, and we got most of them. And sure enough, they were folks who lived here and had families, and we knew the generation that we went to school with.
Now, farther on, they had some estates, did they not? Or estates up Grand River?
Well, yeah. Out west, the other side of Gill Road, there was a C.F. Smith estate, which the house is still there. And what is now known as Chatham Hills was the C.F. Smith golf course. It was a private golf course, 9 holes, and they kept it manicured all summer long. And of course, after the original C.F. Smith passed away, the family eventually sold the property, and that's what became Chatham Hills. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting. And then on the north side of Grand River, there was a school there that was eventually moved. And back north behind the school was all farm. Those are all farms back in there.
That was the Fairview School, wasn't it?
I'm not sure I remember the name of the school because I didn't go there. I went to the school in downtown Farmington.
Yeah.
And then at the corner of Drake and Grand River, where Bob Sachs is now, was the Sarsen Farm. And it was a huge farm. And the Sarsen family were partners with Willys Overland, the Jeep, the people that invented the Jeep. And they brought Jeeps out here to farm with. They didn't have tractors. They used Jeeps to plow, cultivate, to pull the equipment around. And Mr. Fulcher, who was a yard foreman, lived just up the street from us. His two kids were in my class in high school. And we used to go out there and ride the Jeeps and watch them farm. It was very interesting to see people farming with Jeeps instead of tractors. And they had a bunch of them. There must have been 15, 20 Jeeps that they had out there at all times. And they tested them for Willys Overland to see if there's transmissions were good, the motors were good, and so forth. And that's how they tested them, was on this farm.
You must have been pulling pretty heavy things then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting to see them pull plows and cultivators and the like.
Now, the other way down Grand River towards Redford, was there anything special? Of course, the Botsford Inn was there.
Right, the Botsford Inn, and back in 1945 is when my father and my aunt started the Smith Tupper Lumber Company, which was right across the street from Botsford Inn. Other than that, there wasn't much down there. It was a few stores along Grand River. There was a big junkyard there. It was a very popular one. People came from all over to get parts for cars. They're gone now, of course, but that's about all that was down in that area east of Middle Belt.
And I see you brought in a picture of yourself as a Boy Scout. Now, this is interesting because we had no other picture that I know of the Grace Hotel. One time.
Right. This is the Grace Hotel, which was right next to the bakery. Now, the bakery is still there, and the Grace Hotel has since been torn down. And next to the Grace Hotel was an automobile agency, and at one time it was a Pontiac agency owned by Kurt Hall. And Kurt Hall, of course, is famous with his involvement with Farmington Hills and Farmington Township.
Mm-hmm. And C.F. Smith was known for his stores all over the state.
C.F. Smith had grocery stores, right.
And they were small, as I remember.
And we had Conroy's Market in downtown Farmington with the Conroy family. It's been in here in this area for years. We had the Hamlin, DeLoss Hamlin had a small food store. Their family was here for years. So it was a lot of homegrown businesses. Hatton's Hardware, the Hatton family were here, many of them in school with us. It was interesting. It
was a very nice community, and I see that they were very active with the Boy Scouts. Was there a certain parade or something that you were in?
That was a Memorial Day parade.
And you were marching. The Boy Scouts marched in the parade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing we of course, you probably have seen pictures of it. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it. Is that where TJ Maxx is over to where the bargain bookstore is? Back in that parking lot there was the box factory, and it's set behind the dairy. Mm-hmm. And this box factory was owned by I'll think of his name in a minute, but it was a big operation, and they made pallets. They were one of the first operations in the area to make pallets, and they were very busy, and a lot of truck activity in downtown Farmington. And of course, it was not good news to the merchants because of all the trucks, but it certainly was a big operation. And the dairy, which sat there, also had the Farmington dairy buildings were right behind it, where they pasteurized milk. And milk was brought in by tanker trucks in the raw, and it was pasteurized and bottled there at the Farmington dairy. And that was done for many years.
They shipped some of it out, but they actually did some of it right here.
Oh yeah, they pasteurized it right there in the building behind the Farmington dairy.
That was the Warners, wasn't it?
Himmelspots.
Oh, the Himmelspots.
Himmelspots, and the Warners may have been involved in it too. And of course, the thing that I remember very vividly is the Warner Farm, which is where Warner Farm subdivision is now, south of Grand River. Because my cousin used to live on Orchard Street, and I would go there for lunch from school, and we have the cows and the horses right in their backyard.
Oh, my. The horses have this nice soft noses to pet.
But that was a big farm, and it was owned by the Warner family, who lived, of course, up on Grand River.
Yeah, that house, of course, the Warner Mansion is still
Right.
there and very, very lovely.
And Harley Warner, the grandson, was in my class in high school.
Oh, graduated from...
He graduated from Farmington in 1950 with me.
Then you went to where?
Harley?
No, you. Did you go to college then?
I went to Michigan State for 2 years, and then I went into the Air Force.
Mm-hmm. And did Harley go up to school with you?
No, he went to a different college, and then he moved to California. He's involved in a bank out in San Diego, Los Angeles. I haven't talked to him in many years.
And we're going to take a little break now, and we'll be back and talk some more about what Farmington was like and all the wonderful things that you've done as a volunteer.
Okay.
On the big highway of life, there's only one safe place for kids.
Backseat, baby.
The front seat's not the place to drop out. Don't want that big old bag to pop out.
Backseat, baby.
Put that booties in the backseat now.
Backseat, baby.
Have that kids should never be out. Here to remind you to put them behind you.
Backseat, baby.
Wow, let me hear.
Backseat, baby.
To stay alive even when I drive.
Well, we're back.
Okay.
You brought us this lovely picture of yourself all dressed up. And
Yeah, that was taken at Farmington Lumber Company between the house and the office, and there was a rock garden there. And Bob Carnes, who was one of the employees, just adopted this rock garden and kept it immaculate. It was just so pretty, all the flowers and bushes. Had a windmill and a little pond with goldfish in it, and it was. People came from all over to see it. It was very nice. And behind those trees is where the lumberyard was.
And you were mentioning some of the famous hills that we had here at Farmington.
Yeah, the one that we used to do a lot on was the Mcgee Hill, which is as you turn right on Shiawassee off Farmington Road at the Baptist Church, there was a hill that went down and came up and went down by the creek. And it was very steep, and it had many more accidents on it than the city wanted because it was so steep, and in the wintertime it got very slippery. But we used to go down there in our sleds, and back in the late 40s or early 50s, they closed it, and in order to go on to Farmington Road, you had to go down Shiawassee, as they do now, and turn at the bottom of the hill. But the Mcgee Hill was very popular with the kids because it was very steep and great for sledding. And then the other thing that a lot of people are not aware of is that we had a cutoff in Farmington back in the 30s and 40s, and which is now called Freedom Road. The cutoff was a one-way going east, and if you were coming from Lansing, there was no expressway. So the trucks would take this cutoff, and the cutoff went right down where Freedom Road is and joined down by what would be Tuck Road, down east of Farmington. And of course, the traffic going west toward Lansing would have to come right through downtown Farmington.
Well, I wondered, so they just had a one-way road there.
It was called the cutoff, and as I say, it was one way, and all the trucks used it going to Detroit. And in fact, most cars did that didn't want to come through town.
Now, you said that you left after college, you went into the Air Force, was it?
Correct.
And do you still fly?
No. I was in the Air Force for 4 years, and I was in the Air Training Command, and I ended up in Duluth, Minnesota, under the Tactical Air Command, training pilots in the new aircraft that came out. And there, up in Duluth, is where I met my wife, and we married about a month before I got out, and I came back to Farmington and went in business with my dad in the lumber business.
And are you still doing that?
No, we after Home Depot and those people came on the scene, we got out of the lumber business and we were in the door business and hardware business, strictly commercial.
And now you volunteered tremendously here in Farmington. You were mayor. How did you wind up as mayor?
Well, when Sandy Brotherton went to the county as a county commissioner, I was appointed to his seat as a city councilman. And I remained on the council for approximately 21 years. In the city of Farmington, the mayor is not elected by the public. It's appointed by the other council members. So being the fact that we had 5 members on the city council, that meant if you were still there, every 10 years you would become mayor. And so I was there for just over 20 years, so I was mayor twice. And that's how it works. It still works that way today.
What sort of things did you do for Farmington when you were mayor?
Well, I guess we tried to keep the status quo is what we really tried to do. We had the downtown Center Corporation bought the old box factory and turned that into stores where TJ Maxx is and where Damon's Hardware is. And that center part, of course, is parking. And that was a major, major development for the city of Farmington. I was involved with the Downtown Redevelopment Committee back in those days, and we had a lot of good plans, but the problem was that there wasn't the money to do it. And these plans are fine, but you need to have the money there to bring them to conclusion. And but it's still important to continue to plan and to work with what's available today. As you know, we were very, very much impacted by the small shopping centers that were built, like Northland, the Briarwood Mall, and the Livonia Mall. And all those things that really have got to be dealt with. And it's important that the planners and the DDA people keep up with it.
They talked about a possibility of a tourist area there. That never came off either.
And where was that?
In downtown Farmington.
Oh, well, yeah. There was a lot of things that were proposed that never came off.
And they had a one bed and breakfast that isn't there anymore. And he was thinking that it would be neat if they had a tourist area.
Yeah, well.
We have a lot of specialty shops downtown now, don't we?
Right. Back 10, 15 years ago, we had what I consider a Tier 1 stores, such as men's stores. We had an A&P store, which is Farmer Jack, obviously. And we don't have those now, and it's unfortunate because a lot of those things draw people. Now, we do have the post office, which brings in a lot of people, but we need more Tier 1 establishments. Dress shops, men's stores, this sort of thing, to bring people in here to shop rather than coming here for a specific purpose like mailing a letter.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wonder how we could draw in some dress shops and that kind of thing. Wonder if there's a market for it these days. I notice women just don't wear dresses anymore.
Well, that's true. But the Tier 1 people have migrated to the areas where there's more foot traffic. And you go to the malls, like 12 Oaks and that sort of thing, where you got a lot of foot traffic is where they've gone to. So it's just going to be a project for the city of Farmington to develop a plan to take advantage of what stores they have here now and bring people downtown.
Mm-hmm. Of course, they have the library and they have the schools, they have the senior center, and they have restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
And the theater, of course.
Right. The Civic Theater is a great attraction. It's a great historic, has value there, and I hope that they keep it going and keep it profitable so it can remain open.
Were you involved in that?
No, I was not.
Oh, you weren't involved.
The Holler family, Eddie Holler, who owned of course, he passed away and left it to his son Greg, and Greg is the one that worked out a deal with the city of Farmington, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, to purchase it. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a good move.
You have the bookstore down there.
Yep. That's kind of unique.
With the banjo playing.
Yeah, with Skip.
Yeah.
Skip Rosenthal. Yep, he does a great job.
drawing people down. Now, have your children stayed in Farmington, or have they moved on?
Well, we have three children. Our oldest is taking over the business, and he lives in Farmington Hills. My daughter lives in Farmington Hills also, and she works with the company. And my youngest son works with Bank One in Columbus, Ohio.
But it's interesting that your parents went to Redford. You have a picture here of the old Redford High School, which is no longer there. At least we have, Farmington has kept a independence where Redford sort of slid into Detroit.
Well, that's true. And back in the 70s and the early 80s, we attempted to consolidate the city of Farmington and Farmington Hills together. It was a Farmington Township at that time. And we had a study committee from the Citizens Research Council, and we met, must have been 10 or 12 times out of Thompson Brown's office on 12 Mile, studying the possibility of consolidating the two cities. Well, I shouldn't say two cities, because at that time it was Farmington Township. And we put it to a vote, and the people of Farmington Township were in favor of it, but we had one of our councilmen here in the city of Farmington who was opposed to it, and he influenced the people to not vote for it in the city of Farmington, and therefore it failed.
They still talk about consolidating.
Well, it could happen, but I don't think it will. At this point in time, it's a rather remote possibility.
They seem to want to have their independence, every little
Well,
local control,
yeah.
which is good in certain ways.
I think it would not bring the downtown back just because it consolidated, but I think it certainly would have some advantages. And I don't know of too many disadvantages.
Yeah. Well, it was awfully nice of you to come and
thank
tell
you.
us about all these wonderful things that have gone on here, and I thank you.
Okay, Ruth, it's my pleasure.